Welcome to another episode of the YEV podcast, the balanced podcast for all things EV. And today we're going to be talking about EV technicians and is there a current crisis in the UK and is it going to affect the EV market? And today it's myself and Alex, because Kev is gallivanting across the oceans, which I'm sure he'll fill us in on next week. And I've just got back from going away, and I think Alex has had some fun and games, which I'm sure we'll talk about at the end of the podcast. But yeah, I mean, this I think is going to be a really interesting chat, because I'm hoping that we're going to get some, some comments in here as well from some mechanics or technicians or whatever you want to call people that work on vehicles. But I think the first thing to really talk about is, the government are spending a lot of our tax paying money, our tax on EV rollout, on grants, on all these things. But I think what's getting forgotten about is the actual support, having the support of service centers, technicians ultimately to be able to keep these cars on the road. And before I say that, bearing in mind, I think Alex would probably agree with me here, is EVs tend to need less kind of servicing and maintenance, but they still do need elements of it as they go through their life cycle. So, when they do need things, you do really need a specialist, someone who knows what they're doing, especially when it comes to high voltage. Those orange cables are extremely dangerous and they can kill, just like putting a match very close to a petrol tank. So, yeah, I think we should talk about, what the government aren't really doing anything, are they, Alex, in terms of support?
No, there's this whole infrastructure, isn't there, that goes along with them that needs to be put in place. And as you say, I mean, it's one of those things where it's probably just as well they don't require as much servicing as some of the other vehicles that are on the road, because otherwise we're already reaching a point where we're starting to strain the existing capacity that we've got.
Yeah, and it's bearing in mind electric cars have been on the road realistically in decent numbers since 2012. Although I'll tell you about it at the end. I was driving a 1999 electric car today, which is very exciting, coming up on the channel soon. But yeah, I mean, was it 1 million electric cars on the UK roads now? Something
more
like
than that. Yeah, it's more than that. I mean, if you can't plug in hybrids in that, which obviously have high voltage as well. And actually hybrids. I mean, they're over most of those are over 100 volts. So yeah, you're when we're talking about full hybrid, obviously with that, but yeah, high voltage technicians certainly in demand. There's a lot of vehicles out there that need that specialism. It's interesting. I was looking at the IMI, the Institute of the Motor Industry, has kind of got some information on. There's 4 levels, of course, that you have to do depending on where you work within a dealership, and it's everything from kind of your sales staff all the way through to your master technicians and people that are working on these vehicles, doing repairs and servicing and other bits and pieces. And it comes in 4 levels. So you've got everything from your basic kind of hazard perception all the way through to really kind of knowing this tech inside out. And it is a big thing. It's a big thing to change. It's just you want to have that training for when they do need it. It's not necessarily the case that you're going to need lots of it. It's just that at the moment the market is growing all the time, and you need the technicians to come through to be trained on them.
Yeah, and when I did the research on ChatGPT, which you've actually done some further research to just double check this, it just goes to show that ChatGPT isn't always correct. ChatGPT actually said that according to the IMI, it was around 10 to 15% of mechanics / technicians were actually qualified in EV. But you read up on it a bit more than me. So what was the actual real percentage that you found?
So the IMI is kind of raising this as a big issue, that there's a bigger and bigger shortage. We've got obviously yearly targets now that manufacturers have to meet, goes up to 80% cars and 70% of vans that have to be, this is new vans that have to be battery electric. So not plug-in hybrid, this is pure electric by 2030. And after that point, the shortage gets bigger and bigger and bigger. At the moment, 28, the same report actually said 28 and 29%. So 29% of technicians in the UK currently have done the EV training to work on these vehicles. They reckon by 2035 we'll have a 25,000 technician shortage, which is about means we'll have 6 technicians for every 7 that we need in the UK, which is pretty big. That's just, I mean, by that point, obviously 2035, all new cars will be battery electric / fuel cell. But I mean, if they're fuel cell, they're going to have high voltage electrics as well. So
yeah, and that's, bearing in mind there's going to be a lot of older electric vehicles on the road by then that might need more than just checking the brakes and checking screen wash. I always joke that and so you've probably seen online, and I'm sure other people have as well, that only electric cars need a top up of screen wash. But I think clearly the real mix here of that percentage is more than likely just main dealers. I'm sure that the number of independents that have that training is probably a hell of a lot less if you break up the percentage of main dealers versus independents. And this is where the training for an independent, I mean, a lot of people are struggling in the UK at the moment, whether it's the motor trade or any trade at the moment. So for an independent to train their staff or even themselves on a potentially expensive training course to be able to work on electric vehicles can be daunting, can be, is it a risk? Is it going to bring in more business? I would argue that it would bring in more business. We've got bodies like Hevra, Hybrid Electric Vehicle Association. There's a lot of dealers starting to come up now and check out their website because there are dealers around the country if you want to have an independent that is more focused in the EV area. But yeah, there does sound like, I mean, based on those stats, it's actually a lot worse than I thought it was. So, and I think from an age point of view, it does tend to be that mechanics and technicians tend to be a lot older, especially from an independent point of view, right?
I know a mechanic who works in the valleys, and he's basically saying it's not worth. There's no business case yet for him. I mean, he's open-minded to it. He seems interested in the tech, but he said, in terms of doing the qualifications, he just doesn't see the returns on the investment in the tools and the training that he would need to work on those vehicles. There isn't the volume of even hybrids near to him that would be worth doing that work. So, I mean, I think as far as he's concerned, he'd probably retire before it's worth doing the training.
And we hear this a lot, don't we? Oh, it's not going to be, I'll be retired by then. And you hear it so many times, whether it's a fleet manager or anyone involved in transport that just doesn't want to get involved in an extra complication to their job, which I kind of understand in some ways, because it's, like I said before, it's a bit daunting. It's new technology, it's extra work in most cases. Are you going to get paid extra for it? It's difficult to squeeze money from businesses as it stands at the moment. Mod Scotsman's just put in there, from what I've seen, people attending the training at work, it's mainly individuals that are keen on working on EV and large companies that have fleets. That's an interesting one. So, yeah, I mean, I know that there are EV training centres. I think Bosch is one, and there are some independent centres as well. So there are those resources out there, but just not enough people, not enough technicians or mechanics are getting involved. I mean, whether it's a good thing to get involved in now, I would argue that yes, it would be, the number of electric vehicles that are going to be coming on. So yeah, it's a shame that to go back to my original point, which was it's a shame that the government aren't adding that taxpayers' money into that funding to help support the EV transition and the rollout. So do you think, just your point as well, I didn't even think about the tools for an independent. The number of extra tools that you need, further, fully insulated, all the different tools. I'm not going to name them all, probably because I wouldn't be able to, but in terms of working on the vehicles, they can be quite costly. I have seen some people trying to retrofit their own, which I wouldn't recommend, that's for sure. But do you think we're scaring people? Do you think people are just scared of this new technology? And you could argue a lot of mechanics and technicians tend to be more petrol heads, don't they? They get into it because it's a passion, right?
Yeah, I mean, the in general, repairing vehicles these days is there's an awful lot of kind of plugging a computer into it rather than there's less sort of traditional mechanical work and more kind of diagnostic stuff, especially with once you're getting into things like ADAS, advanced driver assistance systems. So your kind of adaptive, even things like adaptive cruise control and other bits that come off those. It's all kind of calibrating sensors and other bits and pieces. I mean, the big issue with this is there's a cost attached to it. And in terms of this is the big thing from a government point of view. If you're trying to kind of incentivize people to get into EVs, if you have a shortfall of technicians, it's good for technicians because if you are in demand, you are in a good position to command higher wages. The downside of that is that you are, as a workshop, to make a profit, you then need to pass those on to consumers. So ultimately, while a vehicle might not need as much work, you might have to pay technicians more to work on those vehicles to cover their costs and their training and the fact that there's a shortage of them. And what you then also end up with is bottlenecks in terms of getting vehicles into workshops. Do you have vehicles that are waiting for repairs that maybe have to wait slightly longer to get seen by somebody? And particularly from the point of view that, I mean, if you're looking at, I mean, almost all vans and the majority of electric and plug-in hybrid cars are going to fleets, you're adding to the operating costs of those vehicles if you've got vehicles that are not working, particularly on the van front. And the vans are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pounds a day if they're offline. You have to work those assets hard, otherwise the total cost of ownership equation goes completely out the window with them.
Yeah, downtime is a massive thing in fleet, absolutely. And to have a van off the road for a day can be catastrophic from a profit and revenue point of view. It kind of it's interesting because this kind of conversation harks back to one of our most popular chats, which was, is EV servicing a scam? So yes, okay, EVs don't need servicing so much, but when they do, you do actually need someone who knows what they're doing, who can work on the diagnostics, can work on high voltage, so yeah, it kind of flies in the face a little bit in terms of what we were talking about in that last chat, but it's getting that balance, as always, like we try to do at YEV, trying to get that balance in there. So yeah, I mean, I think it is a risk and a confidence thing with a lot of the technicians out there, something new that people are worried about. But even still, I mean, I've seen and certainly experienced where independents might not even want to touch an electric car, even if it's just a brake or suspension issue, which has nothing to do with high voltage or nothing to do with an EV, especially. Although I'm guessing there may be a couple of quirks out there for some of these EVs and FEVs, hybrids. But I don't think there really is. It's as simple as a great technician in Bedford, amazing guy. God, I'll remember the name of his company a second. Marco in Bedford, Talk Automotive, I want to say. He like puts my Tesla up on the ramp. Oh, it's just like a Mercedes. Oh yeah, I can work on this, and off he goes and sorts it all out. Arguably better than some other professionals, but that's another story to be continued soon. But yeah, I think there does need to be that more training, support, 100%. And I think technicians and independents are scared of it. But like you said, it's that financial implication. So, what is going to be the impact of the EV market? We've talked about the downtime. Do you think it's going to increase costs as well? Do you think servicing costs is going to go up because of this, or what do you think is going to happen? And from the EV market, do you think it's going to slow things down? Do you think it's going to potentially prevent people from wanting to get an EV because they just don't know where to get it serviced or repaired?
Well, it's worth framing this as a wider problem. I mean, as with a lot of things, the motor industry had a very interesting few years with things like chip shortages and other rising operating costs through inflation and so on. There is actually, I was looking again through the IMI stuff. There is actually a wider technician shortage in general. What you mentioned about earlier, with people sort of not coming in to replace, there's an aging workforce. I don't know that people necessarily want to, if they're going to do a technical qualification, whether they want to get into something more like being an electrician or doing something else, as opposed to, how attractive is the motor industry for, young graduates, young people kind of looking at, leaving school and wondering what they're going to do with their lives next. Interesting what the IMI was saying, that actually the average technician salary is 40,000. It's over the UK average salary. The issue that as well with this is because the costs of everything have gone up, people are carrying less stock in workshops. This has been going on for a little while. Lead times in general are longer than they were. I don't know if, being a Tesla owner, you may not be as aware, but vehicles are waiting. vehicles are waiting longer to get into workshops, and it's almost become the norm now that you can wait several weeks. I was quite surprised. Again, this was through a company called Epic, so they manage bookings in terms of service, maintenance, and repair for fleets. They were saying that beginning of 2020, it was 11 days was the average waiting time to get a vehicle into a workshop. I mean, this is across all jobs. This is every potential job that those vehicles could go in for. Some of them are much longer than this. Some of them are much shorter. I couldn't find recent enough figures that I'd want to talk about, but some of them were getting into weeks a few years ago. That average went up to 14 days in 2023. It's come down to 13 in March 2025. Again, going back to what we were saying earlier about fleets, if you've got a van and something's broken on the van, if you're waiting 2 weeks to get that van into a workshop on average, that's a significant cost. Even if you're a large operator and you're better able to swallow it, if you're a sole trader or somebody and you've got a van that's out of action, that is catastrophic. The other thing that's interesting with the Epic's data is they're saying that in the first 3 years of life, EVs spend the least time in the workshop. So the average time that they spend in the workshop was lower across it. However, vehicle off-road time, so the amount of time that those vehicles are spending out of action, was behind petrol and diesel cars for 4 year vehicles all vehicles up to 4 years old, and it was alternating between hybrids and EVs were alternating in terms of which was the slowest. So we're already seeing an impact from this, and that is not just a kind of a time concept. That is a money thing. If you're operating vans, that is stacked against something that is already the business case with vans could be trickier than it can be with cars. And if you've got mission critical vehicles that are off the road, I mean, that is a really, really big cost to swallow as a fleet operator.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to dive into the comments. We've had quite a few, so thanks everyone for joining in the convo. So, Cast, good to have a message. I don't think you've messaged before. Would a standard mechanic need to be into it full on? How many times will batteries, fuel cells need to be replaced? Not too often, I would think. Yeah, I mean, when it scares stories on batteries needing replacing, outside I've got 230,000 nearly mile Tesla. I think most electric cars are really, really good for longevity. So generally speaking, I mean, if you're talking about Nissan Leafs and Renault Zoes and some of the older stuff, it's normally like inverters or charge port controllers, stuff like that. Renault Zoes, it tends to be the motors they sometimes go. But generally speaking, I think it'd be good to maybe have Matt from Cleveland EV back on to get some real hard data on what he's seeing, because he's not been on for a year. So I'll ask if he can come back on to answer that question fully. But in terms of actual replacing bits and bobs, it's not really going to be battery and motors so much, unless it's really old. And generally speaking, if a battery needs replacing on a Nissan Leaf, it's you might as well write it off really for the value of it, because they're not really worth a lot now, about 1,500 quid. Trevor, thanks for chipping in. We have many years of ICE engines, so we know what's good, we know what's bad, but do we know what's the best EV motor manufacturer out there, or is it just a case of wait and see? Well, I hasten not to comment on this, because I'm sure we all know what I'll mention, but and we know that Alex will probably say Vauxhall. So, but no, I think it's
no comment.
It's a tricky one. I think there needs to be more years. I mean, it does suggest that from a mileage point of view, Tesla pretty strong. Any of the Korean brands, BMWs are strong. The i3s have proven that in terms of the battery degradation. Renault Zoes haven't been great in terms of motors and chargers, and Nissan Leafs, everything works on Nissan Leaf bar the batteries degrade like billio. I was going to say that's not a word that normally comes out because of the cooling of the batteries just isn't there. Dean, I blame the government for pushing kids, especially in my generation, that a degree was the be all and end all. We have great difficulty recruiting skilled young technicians at my workplace. It's a really good point.
It's a really good point. Yeah.
Getting a trade, I would say, especially in this day and age, is a lot more valuable. So my stepson didn't go to university. He got a trade and he's doing really, really well. So hats off to him. Cast, I would imagine they could cope with most faults. To add to his message earlier, Mike Aylen, that's my dad. How we doing? City and guilds of IMI levels 1 to 4. Level 2 is routine EV maintenance is max of £350. Level 3 system repair is max 890, and level 4 advanced diagnostic high EV maintenance max 899. So just to give a bit more, thanks for adding that, Pops. So yeah, level 1, I've always been told level 1 is super basic. Really, you need to start at 2. And when you get to 4, that's when you start taking out battery modules out of a full pack, which is very exciting stuff. I'd love to get involved in that at some point. But yeah, highlighting that. Mod Scotsman, I'm level 4, but it doesn't teach you much hands-on. The courses that Cleverly do for technicians are very good. I think from what I've found out from Ralph, because he does training still, I think, and there are others out there that some are more hands-on than others. Some are more kind of in the classroom, whereas others are literally, taking out the modules. I think me personally, I'd want to have a bit of both, really, for sure. Commuter branch line, battery electric vehicles are easier to work on than over complex Euro 5 and Euro 6 diesels. HV battery faults are not fixed at dealer level. They're removed and shipped off to specialists. All else or plug and play into traditional. Well, it's interesting you say that, actually, because what I found when I was working at Vindus Group Audi, out of the 5 Audi sites, one of the sites was level 4 and more specialists, but then it does get to a point when it gets sent away and the dealer gets the manufacturer gets hold of it and it goes to the manufacturer. Whereas I think companies like Tesla, they sometimes won't. So I saw a really good video recently. I shared it on my Facebook, and check out the Facebook video on there, where this guy was changing a coolant plug on a battery, which was a bit of a pain in the arse. I mean, it was taking apart the battery, moving the module, taking the inverter out, and just changing this pipe. Whereas Tesla, they would just change the battery, and they'd probably fix it elsewhere and then sell it again as a second life battery for another vehicle, like an exchange. So I think the more independents that are out there that could take advantage of what manufacturers are doing there to save people money on the other end would be really, really good. God, they're still coming thick and fast here. Here we go. So commuter branch line, the real PITA vehicles to work on. What's PITA? Do you know?
Pain in the ass.
All right. To work on our FEVs due to complexity, but worst of both worlds, really, with batteries too small to be useful, size just enough to attract the government subsidy. Yes, well, we talked about hybrids last week, so go and check that out. Some really good chat with Alex and Jess on there. So yeah, I really enjoyed that while I was on holiday, funnily enough. So cast, would solar fitters be more flexible for working on them? Powerwall stuff is technical and you would want a zap off it. Yeah, I mean, potentially. I mean, it's similar skill set, I would guess, but apart from the fact that you're working on a car. So yeah, there is a potential need there, but I think the solar market is going really well at the moment, judging by how big the solar show was compared to the EV show this year. One of them. Check out the videos from EV Clinic from the boys in Croatia. They are remanufacturing batteries. Is that the place that the Thai guy always takes his vehicle to? I think it is. I forget his name, Bjorn or something. Really funny guy. Always eats his noodles or something. That sounds a bit. Anyway, but yeah, he does in his car, and he's always testing vehicles. I think that's the right person. Alex, Jess, your dad and I had a great old episode last week. Thanks everyone for the comments.
Slightly warmer this week. It was absolutely Arctic in the garage last week. I'm getting around to that point where I'm having to come in looking like an Eskimo for the garage based episodes. So. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to put the heater on soon. Don't keep whacking in your questions or anything you want to add to the podcast, people. So impact on the EV market. We've talked about delays because of potential specialists not being ready to work on those vehicles. I think a lot of it could be down to parts, waiting for parts as well, because we know that some of the manufacturers are more willing than others and more prepared as well. So it could actually be a little bit of the OEMs. So should the OEMs be maybe the OEMs are having a hard time left, right, and center, aren't they? But maybe they should be helping support a little bit more. But what about the independents? The government's got to step in, surely. The interesting thing with parts actually was I was looking at as well Association of British Insurers. I did a little bit on this last year with crash repairs and so on and so forth. Claims costs are up massively. So insurance costs, as a lot of you will know, have gone up a lot over the last few years. And a lot of that is because the cost of claims has gone up. ABI's latest data says 34% rise in claims cost 2019 2023, which is huge. Wow. But they were saying that within that the average cost of a BEV claim is higher. It's 35% higher, pricier to repair an EV than it is to repair a petrol diesel hybrid car. And they were listing a few things for that. So they were saying that the cost of the vehicle is higher in the first place. The battery is being several thousand, they listed £8,000 to £10,000 battery repair costs. And they were saying that quite often there's a cautious attitude to, if the vehicle's had a heavy impact, that you'll take the battery out and you may well replace it. And then what you end up with then is a vehicle where you've got all of that, but then on top of it, with your ADAS, they have the same issue, that a lot of these things don't have supply chains that are necessarily local. A lot of them require parts to be shipped in from quite a long way overseas, as well as requiring specialist mechanics. So you have a shortage of technicians, you have a shortage of parts in stock, you also have long lead times to get the parts that are that come into stock. And then what you end up with is a position where this vehicle is off the road, you're paying to put the driver in a courtesy car, and you end up with a claims cost that the insurer doesn't want to cover, so they write the car off. Yeah. And that is a big problem. So we're saying about the parts side of things, that did come up within the ABI's figures, is that they're saying that the body shops are having issues with getting the parts for the vehicles in the first place, and because of that, obviously getting longer and more expensive repairs. That will obviously also impact maintenance, servicing and maintenance costs on those vehicles too.
Yeah, and if you're saying that, we've spoken about, personal EVs, people not being worried about having a used EV if they can't service and maintain it, and what happens when it goes wrong, although there is some support out there. But fleets are going to be in that same position, aren't they? If there's going to be that level of downtime, they're going to be put off by electric vehicles, which isn't going to help the adoption, is it?
It's worth remembering as well with insurer stuff that has been influenced by the way that Tesla's approached repairs. In that Tesla, until very recently, you had to be, and those vehicles had to go back into a Tesla body shop or a Tesla approved body shop. Whereas now, again, it's the last 18 months or so they've opened it up, 18 months, 2 years, they've opened that up, and you can now work on them as an insurance approved body shop, and they've released technical diagrams. What's quite interesting chatting to Thatcham, so this is the piece I did, and this will be music I'm sure to your ears, is we started off from a point of view of looking at gigacasting. So you've got the whole front end and rear end structure of Model 3 and Model Y, where depending on market, the whole front section basically is one single cast panel instead of lots of individual kind of pressed panels that are kind of welded together. Pros and cons, quite interesting on that front. But they were saying even in the space of time between releasing those diagrams to the body shops, Tesla was looking at kind of common crash data and what was needed to be repaired on those vehicles, and how then you could make those repairs cheaper. So panels that you could put in to replace certain sections of the gigacast section to avoid repairing the whole thing. And also what was quite interesting with that was they were saying that although the panel itself was not a cheap thing to replace, that entire section, because it's the inner wheel arches and the suspension turrets and the rear chassis legs and the boot floor, it's a big piece. They're saying actually, if you have a regular car where that's lots of different layers of kind of different strengths of metal all welded together, that can be a very expensive and not particularly nice from a sustainability point of view process to put them back together. So actually, although the part is expensive, the labor costs are much lower compared to assembling it out of lots of different sections, which you'd have to unpeel like an onion on a regular car. So there's some quite interesting innovations coming in on the EV side as well to kind of make these repairs a little bit easier to do, even if some of them on paper look like they might be making those vehicles more disposable.
I want to pick up on Adam's point here, which I've got a little bit of experience with as well. So Adam's just mentioned, how come all Hevra dealers, so I keep wanting to say hydrogen, Hybrid Electric Vehicle Repair Association, do not repair EVs. My local Hevra garage will only service the car. I've had exactly the same experience with the one in Kettering. It was a couple of years ago. I just recently bought Rusty, my 69 plate Tesla. and it's on the channel. Check it out. And there was a issue with a bush on the knuckle or something like that, and they were like, "No, we're not going to touch that." And then I had to take it to Tesla. They replaced the whole knuckle. I then spoke to Cleveland EV, and they were like, "Oh no, you don't need to do that. You only need to replace this." And this kind of harks back again to the fantastic work that Cleveland EV are doing, and it just feels like that there just needs to be more Cleveland EV independents out there. Although they've got the garage in Cheltenham and they've got the mobile guys as well, I think they just need to turn that into a franchise. I know that's a big old job, but it does seem to be that a lot of the Hevrard garages, they're like, they will do the servicing, but they won't really go that much further than a few bushes and things like that, or not even bushes in my case. What experience did you have, Adam, out of interest? What part would they not fit? Just go through the rest of the comments here. It's not just technical specialists in EVs that are needed. It's the general engineering technician shortfall. The wages in the engineering hasn't gone up. It's not as rewarded as it is in Europe. Very true. Fox, hi, sorry, missed last week's show. Here now. Good. We'll go back and watch it, mate. Your commuter branch line, you're right about part shortage. Nothing is held locally, and sometimes less common items won't be held in the UK, often coming from European logistics hubs. PSA group EV parts are very slow to get in. Yes, and I think we have covered the fact that Stellantis parts, sometimes you have to get the whole unit rather than just one part to be very, very expensive.
That's going to be the other side of this, is that we talked a bit earlier about familiarity and kind of knowing which of the engines that don't last and the kind of the ones that you wouldn't touch with a barge pole. There are also going to be people who will learn how to fix things in a way that the manufacturer wouldn't necessarily touch them, but once those vehicles are out of warranty, people will find where there'll be a whole industry that will follow in terms of looking at smarter ways to repair these vehicles and to keep them on the road, which at the moment they're not in that price bracket where they need these kind of things to keep them going. So there'll be workarounds that will kind of bring the repair cost down over time, and people will be able to kind of keep them on the road in a better way than they can now.
No, definitely. So Fox has just put, my Model 3 cost a fortune to insure, and now I understand. It's weird with Model 3. I think I started at 700 quid, then it went up to like £1,000, and then it came back down again. But my next door neighbour, although he had a claim, I think he was paying sort of around about the £1,000 mark. So I suppose there's so many different variables in it. But yeah, Teslas do tend to be quite expensive to insure, but they are blooming quick. So a lot of people crash them, unfortunately. Commuter branch line, gigacastings are cheaper to repair, according to Myra. Oh, interesting.
Generally speaking, on that front, they are cheaper to repair in terms of, so it depends on the crash. You can have certain instances where bits will get damaged, which you could repair a smaller section. Tesla are working to find out ways around some of these, but there are bits inside the door jams and stuff where you can get damaged quite easily that causes issues. That was one of the things that had been repaired. That Tesla had found out a way of repairing part of the inside of the door jam on a Model Y that then meant that you could keep the rest of the casting. But there are certain bits that you can end up getting damaged that then mean that you've got to replace the whole section in ways that you wouldn't have to if it was kind of traditional parts. But it's interesting. It's an interesting one to watch because it's so new and the learning curve is really steep. And again, it's that finding those fixes, as I said with the previous point. So.
Cast just mentioned he bought a used EV and he's got fantastic support from his service centre. I'm guessing that's your main dealer. That'd be interesting to know. Fox, Tesla warranty isn't worth the paper it's written on. Really messed me about. Shocking is the polite. Interesting. Tesla warranty isn't worth paper it's written on. Can you divulge a little bit more on that? Because I'm interested to know that, because I've had an interesting experience recently, which isn't quite over. So I'm not going to report until it is. So Mod Scotsman, it's the same with Wisely Automotive with regards to i3 servicing repair. There needs to be more independent garages like them. Yeah, Wisely Automotive, if you want an i3, they're good guys. Met them years ago at the EV Track Day, which I did about 4 years ago. Check out that video. You're 100% right, Alex. Just look at Gary C. EV Repairs YouTube channel. He knows the Zoe better than Renault. He seems to be the go-to man for repairing serious Zoe issues. He is brilliant. The guy that started Hevra is really good on Zoes as well.
So they're now in that kind of they're not quite banger money, but they're in that age now where the only thing that's going to keep those vehicles on the road is being a bit innovative about how you approach repairing them, isn't it?
Hang on a minute, Alex. Did you say banger and EV in the same sentence there? We still haven't.
Again, that.
We still haven't sorted out our banger race. Yeah, we are. Just so everyone knows, we're determined to have some sort of, banger EV rally. We just need somewhere to do it. So if anyone's got a field somewhere, which is, there's no cameras apart from mine. I'm not sure what the legality is with that. So, but if anyone wants to get involved in that, please hit me up.
Storing the vehicles afterwards, that's the issue, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Chargeheads@gmail.com. Weird one. When the battery pack gives up on a car, don't they just use the pack for a house battery? So it would be more cost effective to repair, not replace.
If that's going back to the ABI point, it would be one from a crash damaged car, which they'd probably be concerned about putting into a house.
Yeah, definitely. Because as soon as a battery pack gets dented, that's potentially cells dented. You're best off recycling that. It's not worth the risk.
I had the weirdest. Speaking of specialist workshops, I had the weirdest conversation with somebody about EV. Someone had damaged a battery pack on, I can't remember what the car was, but they'd taken it into their dealer and it had got scratches on the battery, and the dealer had contacted head office for the manufacturer and apparently been told to drill a hole in the casing to drain the right. That's exactly the face that I pulled, and I was like, there is absolutely no way that any qualified mechanic should have taken them up on that advice, or that any qualified person at head office should have been anywhere near a telephone to suggest that. It's like, if that's just unbelievably poor advice.
Do you know what that reminds me of? Oh, do you know what? I've got a headache. Do you know what you need? Drill.
Yeah, Egon Spengler stuff.
Sorry, I'm going medieval. I'm listening to a history podcast with Nelson at the moment. It's really, really good. It's taking me back into the Middle Ages at the moment, although it's 18th century. Right, yeah. So we've got. Here we go. So yeah, Adam mentioned issue. So Adam had a charging issue. Cleveley diagnosed it using the mobile service. However, Cheltenham is 200 miles away. Yes, I feel your pain, although mine's only 100 miles away. Well worth a visit though. Tried all local garages, had to take it 50 miles to an EV approved VW dealer. Interesting. So what was this? So it's a charging issue. Okay, interesting. Hence the Heverard dealer didn't want to look at it. Door button stopped working. They came out fixed, but now have rattle, water in the rear tail lights, and the rear charge port doesn't work, and they want to charge me to fix the issues. So is it still in manufacturer's warranty, not just the battery and motor warranty? Because the door button stopped working, they came out and fixed it, but now it'll rattle. Water in the tail lights is a common thing on Tesla Model 3s. Is it a 3 or an S? Rear charge port doesn't work. Yeah, so how many miles it done? Because it won't be on age, I wouldn't have thought. But yeah, what's the age and mileage of the Tesla? Because it might not be in the normal, first, was it 3 years and 50,000 mile warranty? That's might be why they don't want to do it. So interesting to know the age. Trevor's put a quick question. Would any of you guys buy a Jaguar I-Pace given the state of the company at the moment? Alex, I'll let you answer that first.
Not because of the state of the company at the moment, because of the state of the company as it has been for quite some time. I wouldn't touch. I don't think it's a new thing. It's a shame. The I-Pace is a lovely thing to drive around in, but I've heard some real horror tales about it, and I think it's just, I don't think I'd want to take the risk on it, which is a sad thing to say, because the market is flooded with them and they're dirt cheap because the market is flooded with them. And it's a load of them to the NHS or something, didn't they? Masses and masses and masses of them are on they've sort of flooded the market. Same with the Audi e-tron and I think the EQC as well got masses and masses. Certainly the e-tron did loads on salary sacrifice schemes. So
all three of those cars I wouldn't touch. E-tron because it's inefficient and they have issues with motors. Mercedes because reliability, and the I-Pace. Go back to the I-Pace. So yeah, I haven't got an issue with. I agree with Alex here, but interestingly, I have seen I-Paces with like 250,000 miles on before. I did buy a couple when I used to be a used car buyer for Vindus Group, and one of them was fine. Another one just needed Jaguar to sort out because it had all sorts of electrical issues. But it's a JLR product; it's going to have issues, isn't it? Let's be honest, unless it's rare.
Although built by, was it Magna, isn't it? It's a Magna JLR product, so it's got a bit of mix of kind of bits and pieces in it. Same with, I mean, I think that the Jaguar stuff of 10 years ago, we did a whole show about this last year when was it last year or start of this year when the advert came out, and it was one of those where it's kind of, there was all this stuff about the Jaguar redesign and what to do with the brand and all the rest of it. And I was just saying, actually, I think what they need to tackle before they do anything, pen to paper wise, is go, our products are great, they'll last forever. Here's an 8-year warranty with it. Just get people to that. That for me would be number one thing on the list. There's nothing wrong with the way the Jaguars look.
Shortage of EV technicians there, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah. So.
Interesting. I've just been on Auto Trader because I had to look at what they were going for, and they seem to start from about. There's one at $7,500, but that just doesn't look quite right. So I'm guessing there's an issue with it. But $8,500 upwards, and that's done like 83,000 miles. 90 kilowatt-hour battery in SE because it has heated seats. The S models, it was an option to have heated seats on leather. Something really important to know on an I-Pace. But yeah, they are cheap as chips, aren't they? Interesting. Very interesting.
Great car to drive. And I think as well, they're one of these ones where they're an SUV, but not really an SUV. They've got quite a low roofline, and they're quite kind of, the proportions are quite surprisingly kind of coupe-like. They're a nice looking car, and they drive really well. But yeah, I think I'd be quite concerned about, as with any sort of JLR product, I'd be a little bit kind of, I'd want to know what had been done to it, and take a bit of a leap of faith with some of the quality issues on it. So
yeah, and they do go like stink. My mate used to work for him. He was really impressed with the performance. I'm going to skip over a couple of comments. There's so many coming through at the moment. So thanks, Cast, for putting that one in. Fox. So 65K, and I brought it to Tesla used. So yeah, 12 months. Interesting. Yeah, so he bought it used and had 12-month warranty. Interesting. Yeah, they should be able to sort that out then. Yeah, I would go back to them. Say you're disappointed. That's what I did. And they come back to me after saying that they couldn't do something. So just say you're really disappointed. Or yeah, let's do a video about it. That'll help. Does anyone know a guy who specializes in repairing Jaguar I-Paces? Bet he's not short of money. Yes, Magna. Yeah, you were right. Commuter branch line in Austria did indeed build the I-Pace. There we go. All right, back to the EV technician crisis. So, yeah, do we need a new generation of? I love the way that ChatGPT here put charge techs, Chargeheads, charge techs. I love that. So do we need a new generation? Should there be incentives? Example, I do think that there needs to be, doesn't there? There needs to be some sort of action.
There seems to be a lot of outreach in terms of manufacturers kind of getting. There's a lot of interest in kind of amongst young people in terms of programming and coding and all this sort of side of things, that I know that manufacturers go out to schools and universities and try and kind of get involved in the sort of STEM stuff and get people hyped up about getting into the automotive industry, because there's lots to talk about, and maybe people do sort of think of it as being a kind of oily bits and spanners kind of career, and actually these days maybe it's less so. And the things that you're looking at doing with kind of batteries for like a mobile phone manufacturer, for the Apples and stuff of this world, maybe it's a case of trying to lure people. I mean, I'm talking from an R&D point of view. Maybe there's something that needs to happen from a workshop point of view, where if you're really interested in electronics and you're really interested in kind of coding and working with computers and all this other stuff, there's a really exciting world of workshops for you to kind of get involved with. And it's not your kind of it's not the industry it was. It's a totally different working environment. Whether that's part of it, it's an education and outreach piece.
Depending on the garage you go to, because I've seen some garages that are very much stuck in the past, or oil and sawdust on the floor, and a toilet that you wouldn't.
Bikini clad women on the wall and all the rest of it. Yeah.
Oh, good old days.
Stuff that you don't. Stuff that you just don't. I think you probably wouldn't see it in a kind of modern dealer workshop anyway. I don't know. No. Maybe you would.
God, yeah, that's taking me back. I've got a few visions in my head now. You've properly phoned me now. So yeah, I think there does need to be a government-backed scheme or like a retraining of technicians. I think they're just ultimately they do need to do something. I think not just focus on incentivizing the purchase of before it's too late, because it will be too late, and it really will, I think, start affecting people's faith in EVs. Not that that's the greatest at the moment anyway, but there we go. So if we talk about sort of future predictions and obviously we talked about the future. I just then. In 5 years, being an EV tech could it be the most demand trade? It could well be, couldn't it? I mean, but we talk about cost and people don't want to be rising their prices. It's going to potentially affect having an EV if the media get hold of that as another, or whoever wants to start pulling down EVs again. Like, it's not just, oh, they're not as good for the environment or whatever they want to pull some data from, but oh yeah, you won't be able to get your EV repaired or fixed. I've not seen that yet. I think that's coming.
Yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, if you look at how much attention it got with insurance prices and all the other bits and pieces recently, EVs being expensive to insure and and difficult to repair and all the other bits and pieces, it's going to get latched onto at some point. I mean, I have to say, if I was going to try and get into any profession that was involving a specialism, it would be trying to get into being a battery chemist of some sort, because I can't see something that, as a safe career goes, you really are in a good position if you get into that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've got to think ahead of these things. But arguably, is that something for robots and AI of the future to be able to sort out?
Well, it's funny you say about AI. That's the other thing. Well, there actually was one thing I was going to mention earlier, which I'll come back to. But the AI thing and the predictive maintenance thing could be actually quite an interesting way out of this. Now that things are, more vehicles are connected, you've got all, manufacturers that are offering kind of built-in telematic systems that can kind of submit more data and so on. Maybe the way to alleviate the bottleneck is to be a bit more flexible with how vehicles are serviced, where you do it based on live data and how those vehicles are used, and the more information they can gather, the more accurately you can service those vehicles, and you don't need to get vehicles in that it's been 12 months, therefore that vehicle has to come into the workshop. You might find that vehicle doesn't need to come in for 18 months, or maybe it needs to come in every 6 because it's working really hard, or you can be a bit smarter with it. The other thing I was going to say in terms of shortages is my little pet thing about heavy vans, the 3.5 to 4.25 ton vans that you can drive on a standard license. Those have to go to specialist HGV MOT places, which is another issue that needs to be sorted out by the government. There's you need different ramps and you need different test equipment and stuff to work on those vehicles, and that is a cost which, purely on weight, even if before you take out anything to do with to do with high voltage systems and so on, there's a weight issue with those vehicles in terms of actually kind of creating bottlenecks and having shortages of garages that can work on those vehicles, which is obviously a big TCO, a total cost of ownership issue for fleets that operate them. So yeah, there is that as well. But yes, the AI thing I think could be quite a useful tool in the armory in terms of kind of being a bit smarter with how these vehicles are serviced, especially once we know more about how they age and the different factors that can influence that.
And it keeps reminding me, or I keep thinking about drivers, HGV drivers. So HGV drivers are getting older. There's not much young blood in HGV driving, and obviously that's going to be taken over in part by AI and autonomous driving, because that is already happening in China and it's starting to trickle in. Obviously there's lots of regulations and all the rest of it, and I'm pretty sure that we covered it on another video. We've done so many now. So yeah, I think there is going to be an element of that to help for sure moving forward. Now I'm going to get into the comments in a second, but I'm really interested in some answers or comments on this, which is, and we've had a few already. Have you struggled to find someone qualified to work on your EV? I know that we've had a couple already. Should the government fund EV training for existing mechanics? And would you trust your EV to an independent garage yet? I think the first one's probably the most relevant. Are you struggling to find a qualified EV that isn't main dealer? But yeah, whack it in the comments while I go through the ones that just come through. So Adam's just put in, also concerned about connectivity. My car's using 3G connection. The government are closing down this network. This will make my car dumb. I understand you cannot retrofit 5G. So another really good point, actually, when we're talking about older EVs, like the Nissan Leaf, they stopped the connection of their smart kind of connection device. Although I think there are retro kits out there now. My charger is now dumb. My EO Pro Mini, whatever it is, because EO stopped supporting that. So I think there's a lot of that going on. And you look at what's the name of that EV company that went bust from America? They had 3 spoke wheels on it. Really love
Fisker.
Snap. Yeah, Fisker, obviously that's not supported anymore. So, you know, knowing which electric car to go for that is going to have that support. So yeah, it's a worrying time in that respect. You know, all kids aren't as interested in cars so much now. More videos of real work needs to be shown on TikTok and other social media. I think there is still, I mean, I think there are quite a lot of young people that are into cars still, but it doesn't tend to be electric because they're not, generally speaking, not as exciting. So I need to work doubly hard to produce some more exciting videos. So yeah, any ideas, guys, pop it in the comments. Dean's put, let's not forget, guys, we're still in the first generation of EVs. I see EV drivetrains and batteries getting much more reliable as years go on. I argue that, Dean. I don't think we are in the first generation anymore. Bear in mind, I drove a 1999 electric vehicle today, but I think like the first generation is your Nissan Leaf, your Renault Zoe, your Kia Soul. I think we're on kind of another generation now. I think we're on a second generation where we've got electric cars that are 300 miles. But I'm splitting hairs now, but I think we are in a newer generation of technology with electric vehicles now, especially with, you know, the fast, ultra rapid DC charging. Hi, Stephen. Hi, guys. Hope you're well. All this is going to be driven by AI soon enough, though. It's true. I wonder what that looks like from a servicing point of view. Because if you're talking, you know, whether it's Waymo or Tesla, the Waymos are I-Pacers, aren't they? What other cars that Waymo do other than I-Pacers? I don't think they do. Whack it in the comments if you know.
They have done other vehicles, but yeah, it's I-Pace at the moment. They were using was it a Chrysler Pacifica minivans a few years ago, I think.
Okay. Yeah, take the Tesla robo taxi. So potentially there will be wireless charging, or there will be automatic charging machines, which are already out there. I spoke to the guys. They're in Holland. There's companies out there that do the charging ports automatically. So yeah, but who services them? You know, how are they checked over? So
well, the other side of that is that do you then end up with 24-hour workshops where your car in the middle of the night will go off to a workshop? It knows it's got something wrong with it and it'll drive itself off to a workshop, or where somebody can come and do it on your driveway while you sleep.
I think that's at least a decade away. I think it's
yeah. I mean, you know how skeptical I am of a kind of a near future autonomous mass market autonomous vehicle, but
no,
we should see.
I genuinely think if the regulation gets in, I reckon it's 5 years we start seeing more. Waymo have just put an office in London. You look at the progress of what robotaxi is doing in some parts of the US. China are pushing it forward. As soon as all the other countries see how far China have come, they're like, oh, we need to sort out our regulations. We don't want to fall behind. That's what I think will happen. So I think within 5 years, we're going to start seeing a lot more, personally.
It's conditional, though. It's all on controlled routes and stuff. It's not a full set of roads in the cities. And with China, you're building infrastructure specifically for it, which we don't have the option to do. And we've got, I'm going to use the legacy word. We've got a lot of legacy infrastructure that's not necessarily suitable for those vehicles, which is a bit more complicated. But we shall see. Did you not see in my comments last time? Every time you say the word legacy, you got to do a shot. I don't have a shot handy, but I'll promise I'll neck a couple afterwards, and I'll post some pictures of it on social media, maybe.
Maybe we should do it on the podcast on a Friday night.
The only thing I've got here is single malt Scotch whiskey, so I don't think it'll be making much sense by the end of the podcast if I start necking out every time I say
join you, mate, because after a week off of work, I'm going back tomorrow, so a few emails to get through, no doubt. Just seen a Tesco delivery van refrigerated. That was full EV. Yeah, nice.
Same all around here as well. Yeah, they're all queued up in the corner of the car park charging.
Or when we were driving in this 99, I keep going on about it. Really excited about this video coming out.
I want to see this. Yeah.
We did see an electric. I think it was an open reach van. Condition-based monitoring. That's what we are pushing my workplace to reduce our maintenance schedules on our manufacturing machinery. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. I was considering, commuter branch light, I was considering buying a Mercedes EV tow. Blimmin' heck. I hope you're only taking that to the shops and back if it's the older one. The sales guy pointed out the latest version of the MBUX communicates with the workshop and will tell you that the dealer when the servicing is due. Yeah, but that's what cars have been doing that for ages and always getting it wrong. They always have to reset it unless it's extra clever. I'm sure if Mercedes are turning the knobs, it will probably have to go in every couple of months, mate. Mod Scotsman isn't first generation the first cars back in the 1900s. Yeah, clearly on third generation then. Waymo used Zeekrs. Look how that went.
I don't remember that.
Am I thinking of a different car brand that Zeekr? I'm sure I've
driven Geely one. Zeekr's a Geely sub brand. Those Volvo platform stuff.
I think I drove one in Milan last year. Interesting vehicle. Tim, where have you been on holiday so we can guess the 1999 EV you drove? Now, I didn't drive on holiday, although I did sit on an electric ride-on tricycle that was at the hotel. And I was in Morocco, Marrakesh, and I did see a Tesla, amazingly, in Marrakesh, just outside the souks where they've got the snakes and the monkeys and all the rest of it. And I jumped in this VW Caddy van, whatever it was, 550,000 kilometers. And I just saw a Tesla go by with all these mopeds and everything. I was like, look at that. So I got a picture. In fact, I'll find it to the end for you all. Not that you can probably see the wing of it. Most of the buses in Taunton, Somerset are now EVs. There's loads of EV buses now. They've, going back to depot for any commercial vehicles, that's the easy part. It's the vans that go home. That is going to be the massive issue moving forward. Adam, imagine in central London being behind a Waymo, it would not move for hours and people walking in front of them. Yeah.
Signaling intent is a big one. I wrote about that last year, and they were talking about how to do that with, how to communicate between the interactions that you'd normally do through body language and positioning a vehicle on the road. Very hard to do with autonomous vehicles in either direction.
I think in summary from this podcast, and it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are, Alex, is we've kind of really decided that actually the government do need to play a part. They need to help retrain independent technicians. They need to support training. And, I think the main dealers are probably doing it already anyway. But yeah, the independents do need a helping hand. And also, there was another point I was going to make. Let me think of it while you add it, and you'll probably say the one that I was thinking.
I was going to say, there's a big push on selling new EVs and flooding the market as much as possible with new EVs. And I do think there's more balance in terms of where that money could be spent in terms of supporting them. We've talked about used market stuff on here before, and the servicing side of things, that infrastructure is as important as your charging networks and your incentives for your new vehicles. I think it's part of kind of keeping the cost down, especially for vans, as we've mentioned a few times. Being able to ensure that you can really capitalize on the servicing benefits by driving those costs down as much as possible, I think, is a really important step in the right direction.
Yeah, the other point I was going to make is I think it is a pretty safe bet to get involved in being an EV technician, because I don't see there. Obviously with the introduction of AI, there's certain jobs that are going to easily be able to be done by, AI robots, which is going to be a thing, I'm sure, moving forward. So I don't see it really happening too much on, maintenance and servicing on electric vehicles so much. And obviously there's going to be a lot of older cars on the road. So I think it's a pretty safe bet to get involved in. And there we go. There's the picture of the. Doesn't look like a Moroccan street, but I guarantee you that is in Morocco. I found, of course, it was a white Tesla. But yeah, the only other electric vehicle that I found was not the most exciting. It was one of these electric tricycles. But let's talk.
I love that you and Kev go on holiday and take photos of EVs. Kevin got a picture of a Mocha E on some mountain top somewhere when he was away as well. Yeah,
I have got.
I can't say anything. I mean, my holiday photos include pictures of old polos, so I can't really say anything. But yeah.
Well, put it this: talking about costs of servicing and issues and all the rest of it. I have got a video coming up soon. I don't want to talk about it because I don't want anyone to nick my idea. But I've got quite a positive thing to look at from a EV point of view, which is related to EVs. So that will be coming up soon. But talking about videos coming up soon, I will talk about this 1999 car. So today I drove a Peugeot 106 electric.
Is this the one you mentioned a few weeks ago?
Well, this Peugeot 106 electric is a bit more special than, and they're special anyway, because there's only about 20 on the road. They were 19 grand originally, mid-90s. This is a 1999 car. But what makes it special, they originally had NiCad batteries, DC motor, and they were like 11 seconds 0 to 30, had a 50-mile range. So the guy, Russ, who I went to see, who's done lots of conversions on Lotus, Lotai, whatever you want to call him, Alan Partridge, go back and watch that, because there is a little bit of footage on that video of this 106, but today I got to drive it. And what makes it special is he's put a Nissan Leaf motor inverter, so a Nissan Leaf stack, and also upgraded the NiCad batteries to lithium. And he's made it lighter, 3 times more powerful, and it's got double the battery. So I mean, I don't know if anyone else has heard of anyone doing this, but it sounds like it's never been done before. Yeah, okay, people have increased battery sizes, but no one's, as far as I know, no one's actually increased the motor, made it better, more powerful, and upgraded the batteries and made it lighter as well. So I had to make up a new name for it, and I've decided EV Power Up, because I don't know if anyone's got. Yes, Ewan McTurk had one. I think he's still got it, actually. I've messaged him what his battery degradation is like on those NiCad batteries. Has anyone got an idea? Because I'm still editing the video for what you call that. Because it's not an engine swap. It's not an engine. It's not really a motor swap. It's a motor and battery swap. So I thought an EV Power Up would be a good expression, because it's not really been done before. I mean, powertrain swap, it's not really powertrain, it's battery and motor. So I thought a Power Up, EV Power Up, sounded quite good.
Yeah.
So if anyone's got ideas of what I could call that vehicle, or what we should as a community call an electric vehicle that's had an upgraded motor and upgraded battery, I'd be really interested to hear your thoughts. So yeah, whack them in the comments now, or add in the comments later if you think of something on the, when you're reading the paper on the blog or whatever. But yeah, so that video is coming out Wednesday, so I'm busy editing that. And yeah, back at work this week, so I'll head down and electrifying fleets as usual. That's me this week. I'll get to the last few comments, but Alex, what are you up to this week, and what have you been up to? I've not seen you for a week.
So yeah, I mean, I've actually got a kind of more of a secret squirrel week this week, but this last week has been an interesting one. I did an event yesterday called the St. James Motoring Spectacle, which was on Pall Mall. So the Polo was one of 6 that were selected to be on the Volkswagen UK display of 50 years of the Volkswagen Polo. So it's really cool, but just driving straight into the middle of London in the Polo and parking it on Pall Mall. And there's about 10,000 people walking up and down Pall Mall. Expensive though. I spent £42.50 on congestion and ULEZ charges to take my car into London. So yeah, not a cheap experience, but unforgettable nonetheless. And
one of 5 polos there, weren't you?
Sorry?
One of 4, one of 5 polos?
6.
One of 6. That's such an achievement, to have one of, bear in mind, when it wasn't OEM, like manufacturers' cars there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so 2 of them, there was a Mark 1 and a Mark 2 that were Volkswagen UK cars, and a current Polo GTI that was also a manufacturer car. They couldn't get the Mark 4, so that's the one with the quad headlights that later got turned into kind of a more golf shaped. Couldn't get one of those in time. It seems to be of an age where people were not really into them. But yeah, it's very cool, kind of see, as I say, wandering up Pall Mall that I'm used to going to on foot, and there my little car was just sat in the middle of all these people, and it was really hard. I mean, I hardly took any photos yesterday because it was just, you couldn't get near the cars for just the sheer volume of people just going up and down Pall Mall. It's really cool, really cool.
Did you do a burnout?
Well, I got at the end of the day, they kind of moved everyone out of the street so all the cars could do the Grand Départ or something. Yeah, you could drive off basically. So driving the car through these kind of crowds of people with their phones out. So I haven't seen any videos of it on YouTube yet, but yeah, the temptation to just kind of give the supercharger a bit of a wah on the way out. But yeah, I was very well behaved. Very well behaved.
Good man. Right, so yeah, just to whack in the rest of the comments here. So there's an interesting one in here as well. Imagine in central London being behind a Waymo. No, I think we did that one, didn't we? Great show. Thanks, Adam. Morocco has a very loyal and thriving Tesla owners club. Check them out on YouTube and the socials. Morocco would be an epic Chargeheads road trip. You just know Kevin would get there and back in one.
Don't give him any ideas.
Yeah, but how do I get I would love to, because I mean the roads out there in Marrakesh were absolutely fine. I mean, I'll be fine with Rusty because she's been battered already. So how would I get there? Would I go all the way down to the bottom of Spain and then get
and go across?
I have to do it.
It's doable. Kevin could get there in one and back on one charge. You just need a really good navigator because he can't read a map for
Toffee.
His life depends on it.
Yeah, Dr. Ewan McTurk did have an electric 106. So we've got a couple in here. Electromod, an EV Frankenstein. I like that. Level Up. I still think Power Up is still my favorite. I did get ChatGPT to create a few ones as well. I'll give where is it? Reamped, Overcharge, hang on, Electro Swap, Volt Shop, Volt Swap, Amp Swap, Power Up. That's my favorite. Reduced, quite like that. Overcharged build, but it did sound like an overcharged bill. Emod. I still think Power Up. Power Up sounds like
sell out. I was trying to think of something with a sell of some sort. I know, yeah.
Sell up. Well, yeah, but it's got to be to do with motor and battery. So I thought Power Up was good because you can up the power of the motor and up the power of the battery. So Power Up. See what I did there? Or well, I didn't do it. It was actually ChatGPT, but I'll take the credit. Where credit's due. BMW i3 owners are relying on a small number of specialists on booking my service 6 months in advance. Shout out Wisely Automotive in Cleveland. Also, Avidas, he specialises in i3s and he's in Wales. So go and check him out. He even does battery swaps. And we did a video on a live a few weeks ago. Guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. Next week, really exciting. We've got Patrick from Clearwatt on, and we're going to be talking about battery degradation, which is one of my favourite subjects. And apparently Clearwatt is one of the best battery testing companies in the UK. And yeah, very supposed to be one of the best ones. Ewan says that they're ones to speak to. We've had battery people on before, but yeah, I think I'm really excited about it. I'm sure Alex is equally excited. Probably not
always.
But yeah, if you are worried about battery degradation, you want to know what the best test is, I think this is it. So let's delve into the detail when he's on next week. And I think Kevin should be back with us again as well. So yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll see you next week.